Hi, everybody. This is Lee, and I'm discussing the hurricane season, which has been especially brutal and volatile this year. That Hurricane Harvey has definitely left its mark on the Texas Gulf Coast, and that lives will not be the same again in the Houston, Beaumont, Corpus Christi area, and that there's been, of course, the event itself, and then the aftermath of rebuilding and then recovering housing and then health, if either or all three are possible. That the situation wasn't just a natural disaster, Hurricane Harvey, that like Hurricane Katrina, that there was a man-made disaster aspect to this event. The fact that 12 years after Rita, there was opportunity to repair and modernize and strengthen the infrastructure along the Gulf Coast, and it was not done. And we see the results. That a lot of our infrastructure money has gone into military defense, meaning that our own home defense, our coastline, our infrastructure has become a health and safety hazard, also a security hazard to the United States. Again, because the money that would have been needed to fix and strengthen and modernize that infrastructure went overseas. And so there's something very wrong here. And so we see people, you know, trying to erect false blockades against the possibilities of renewable energy taking the place of petrochemicals and fossil fuels. The fact that not only was there a failure of man made structures, but there was also environmental contamination as a result of the natural disaster, and that there are many strange mixtures of chemicals in the water as a result, and that everything from hexane to benzene to toluene floating around in the water, floating around the air, being flared up out of the refineries as they go online and offline and online and offline. And in the meantime, the wind is blowing, the sun is shining, and the waves are flowing, and that could also serve as a more clean energy use at the Gulf Coast of not only Houston, of course, but also Mississippi, Alabama, and then Florida as well, and Louisiana. And so we see possibilities that are being blockaded and people are dying, and that we've seen the immediate tragedies, but then we still don't know the ultimate, more insidious nature of the harm being caused with all these chemicals being spread around in the water and then in the air, and then lingering in the soil after the water receives. What health effect, what health hazard that's going to result in. And that's just in the Texas area. Now we still have Irma kind of circulating around Florida, having already devastated the Caribbean, and then moving towards Florida, circulating around there. And again, we see things that could have been done that were not done, and that these are a string of red states with political representatives that have chosen to not represent the people that elected them and that pay their taxes, their salaries, that they have chosen to represent the fossil fuel industry instead. And that we see that reflected in who's being protected. The fossil fuel industry is being protected, not the people. The people are apparently collateral damage to the political representatives. And that Tulsi Gabbard has recently introduced a certain act. I'll see if I can find it real quick. It's the Oh, here it is. Representative Tulsi Gabbard's Off Act. It's considered a game changer by Food and Water Watch. The Off Fossil Fuels for a Better Future Act is very necessary, and it details how to get to 100% renewable energy by 2035. And so she introduced that last Friday, the Democrat representative from the state of Hawaii, and that the bill comes right in the middle of all this volatility and chaos and weather assaults, and that Tulsi Gabbard's bill is the strongest yet introduced in the Congress. And it's slated to put the United States on a path of avoiding increased chaos caused by climate change. And that it will place a moratorium on new fossil fuel projects and move the country to 100% renewable energy by 2035. And that there's a focus on rapid transition in the next 10 years. The bill is co-sponsored by Representatives Nanette Barragan, and that's California, Barbara Lee, California, Ted Lieu, California, Jamie Raskin, Maryland, Keith Ellison, Minnesota, Jan Schakowsky, Illinois. Not one member from Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or Florida. And so people feel that this legislation is very much needed, that Donald Trump has visited Texas a couple times and talked about helping out. But the thing is, Donald Trump and then other members of that congressional delegation in those states are speaking more about increasing drilling and fracking on public land, and then even off the coast of the United States. That's what they want, even while we're in the middle of hurricane season, and that there are petrochemical plants flaring and then spilling toxic chemicals in the air and the water, and the infrastructure is failing, making things a lot worse than they have to be. And then the response is more drilling, more fracking, public land, and then offshore. And this is even Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic governor of Virginia. So, these people are promoting the development of more pipelines, and they are exporting more oil and gas abroad while wrecking the environment here at home and causing a lot of harm. That in Texas, there's a Trans-Pecos pipeline that's being protected rather than the people of Texas. And then in Louisiana, there's the Bayou Bridge pipeline, which is being protected rather than people of Louisiana. And then in Florida, there's the Sabal Trail pipeline, which is being protected rather than people of Florida. And then there's also a fight in Florida against fracking. And so the fact that it even has to be fought in the middle of all this is what's really strange and pretty much dysfunctional. But anyway, the Off Act by Tulsi Gabbard, some feel, is very much a critical step towards mobilizing the United States, creating thousands of good jobs in renewables, energy efficiency sectors, infrastructure sectors, things like this. And that there's the ban on the exports, and that it moves the automobile and rail systems to 100% renewable energy, because transportation has definitely come up as an issue. And that the bill requires that people in impacted communities have a leading role in the development and implementation of clean energy plans and regulations, and that it establishes an equitable transition fund and workforce development center. So it's a jobs bill as well. This is paid for by closing the offshore tax loophole and then repealing the federal tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry. So, lots of information. I'm going to post links to these articles, including this one at Food and Water Watch, one at Truth Out, and then I'm going to see if I can find the link to Tulsi Gabbard's actual bill itself at Congress, at the U.S. Congress, and so people can read that and see what it's about. And I say, good luck.